clever enough to spot Asteria as being his spiritual guide, who would put them into communication with their loved ones. This was due to currents of sympathy which immediately drew them to her. Then, when the séance had gone on for some time, Asteria would say that the power was getting weak, and she would bid them goodbye and fade into silence. Presently Ludovic came out of his trance, and they would all tell him how wonderful it had been. At other séances he would not go into trance at all, but Asteria used his hand and his pencil and wrote pages of automatic script in quaint, slightly foreign English, with here and there a word in strange and undecipherable characters, which was probably Greek. George and Jane and Mary were then dictating to Asteria, who caused Ludovic to write down what she said, and sometimes they were very playful and did not like their wife's hat or their husband's tie, just by way of showing that they were really there. And then any members of the circle could ask Asteria questions, and she gave them beautiful answers. Sylvia and her guide, Violetta, were not in so advanced a stage of development as Ludovic and Asteria. Indeed, it was only lately that Sylvia had discovered that she had psychical gifts and had got into touch with her guide. Violetta had been a Florentine lady of noble birth, and was born, on the material plane, in the year 1492, which was a very interesting date, as it made her an exact contemporary of Savonarola and Leonardo da Vinci. She had often heard Savonarola preach, and had seen Leonardo at his easel, and it was splendid to know that Savonarola often preached now to enraptured audiences, and that Leonardo was producing pictures vastly superior to anything he had done on earth. They were not material pictures exactly, but thought pictures. He thought them, and there the pictures were. This corresponded precisely with what Asteria had said about the flowers, and was therefore corroborative evidence. This winter and spring had been a very busy time for Ludovic, and Mrs. Sapson, one of the most regular attendants at his séances, had been trying to persuade him to go for a short holiday. He was very unwilling to do so, for he was giving 5 full séances every day, which naturally mounted up, and he was loath to abandon, even for a short time, the work that so many people found so enlightening. But then Mrs. Sapson had been very clever, and had asked Asteria at one of the séances whether he ought not to take a rest, and Asteria distinctly said, "Wisdom counsels prudence, be it so." After the séance was over, therefore, Mrs. Sapson, strong in spiritual support, renewed her arguments with redoubled force. She was a large, emphatic widow who received no end of messages from her husband William. He had been a choleric stockbroker on this plane, but his character had marvellously mellowed and improved, and now he knew what a waste of time it had been to make so much money and lose so much temper. "Dear Mr. Ludovic," she said, "you must have a rest. You can't fly in the face of sweet Asteria. Besides, I have just got a lovely plan for you. I own a charming little cottage near Rye, which is vacant. My tenant has suddenly quitted it. It is a dear little place, everything quite ready for you. No expense at all, except what you eat and drink, and sea-bathing and golf at your door. Such a place for quiet and meditation, and who knows, some wonderful visitor, not earthly, of course, for there are no bothering neighbours, might come to you there." Of course, this charming offer made a great difference. Ludovic felt that he could give up his spiritual work for a fortnight with less of a wrench than was possible when he thought that he would have to pay for lodgings. He expressed his gratitude in suitable terms and promised to consult Sylvia, who at the moment was engaged with Violetta. She leapt at the idea when it was referred to her, and the matter was instantly settled. The two were chatting together on the eve of their departure. "Wonderfully kind of Mrs. Sapson," said Ludovic, "but it's odd that she didn't offer us the cottage before. She was wanting me to take a holiday a month ago." "Perhaps the tenant has only just left," said Sylvia. "That may be so. Dear me, the country and sea breezes, how nice, but I don't mean to be idle." "Golf?" suggested Sylvia. "Isn't it very difficult?" He walked across the table and took up a square parcel which had just been delivered.